Hi, I'm KB. No, we don't start with that. I never say my name at the beginning of videos. Welcome to my channel. This is my monthly wrap-up where I update my book blanket and we talk about all of the books that I read in May. How was your May? Because mine felt long. April was crazy fast. May took forever. I read 10 books in May. Usually I read maybe 4 or 5 books in a month. Reading 10 for me is a lot. And maybe that's why May felt so long. I had a good month, but it was very monotonous feels right. Well, we're just gonna dive right in because, again, I have 10 books to talk about. We don't have time to mess around. The first book that I read in May was The Angel of Indian Lake by Stephen Graham Jones. This is the third book in the Indian Lake trilogy. Incredible. I fell in love with Stephen Graham Jones' writing when I read My Heart is a Chainsaw, and it only got better from there. Don't Fear the Reaper, 5 stars, and this is 5 stars. Series as a whole, 5 stars. One of the best things I've ever read in my entire life. It really, I think, fundamentally changed who I am as a human being. This is a horror book, and so for the horror genre, I'm adding brown to my blanket. Each book gets 2 stripes, so I'm putting 2 stripes of brown onto this blanket, starting here. My last 2 books from last month were also brown, so we're going to have a big chunky brown stripe. The Indian Lake trilogy follows Jade Daniels, who is a teenager and kind of uses horror movies and slasher movies as a way to cope with her circumstances. She really forms these close relationships outside of the family where she can't find them at home, and kind of latches on to these slasher tropes as a way to see the world. It is so sad. I cried through the entirety of the last book, I swear. If you want proof, I have a blog of it. If you haven't read this series and you are a movie lover, you're a slasher lover, you should read them. The references are so fun. It's so interesting to me how we use horror as a way to deal with the lack of control we have in the world. Jade has these emotions and these relationships that she isn't able to fully explore, but through her actions we see what she means, and we see what means to her, what means the most to her, and it's just so beautifully written. The characters are incredible, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life now that they're gone. Okay, 5 stars. Starting the month off with a 5-star horror book. That's more than I could ever ask for, so I'm gonna finish these stripes and then I'll be back to talk about the next book. The next book that I read in May was The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is a Carrie retelling. I think it's technically a YA horror. It's not too graphic or gruesome or anything, but it kind of takes the story of Carrie and puts it into the perspective of this small town that has separate proms for the black students and white students. Some media attention falls onto the town and kind of surrounds this girl named Maddie, who is our Carrie. She's a mixed student, but she is white passing, and it comes out that she is mixed. There's some performative activism that surrounds her, circles her. It follows the story of Carrie very closely, and it's also mixed media. It has a podcast element similar to how Carrie has newspaper clippings. So cool, so good. I loved how all of the characters were written and how they all felt very realistically motivated, even though they were perpetuating these very clear roles on what the author is trying to tell us. I gave it 4 stars. I loved it a lot. It was fast. This is another horror, so it's another brown stripe. I'll crochet these 2 rows and then I'll be back to talk about the next book. We're gonna have a change pace because at this point in the month I was ready for something a little more lighthearted. Now we're gonna move on to our next book. Our next book is The Bride Test by Helen Huang. This is the second book in like the Kiss Quotient companion series. It follows, I think, the cousin of the main character in the Kiss Quotient, who is autistic. He doesn't believe that he can adequately love anybody. His mom basically goes to Vietnam and finds him a bride and brings her home and sets them up and has them live together. So there is like a forced proximity element. I really like how the characters in these books like care about each other and care for each other and how they show care, because it's so different than some other books where you have neurotypical characters. I really like the woman main character in this book. I'm giving it 3 stars. It was quick, fun, good palette cleanser, and I'm gonna add white. Let me double check that that's what I'm adding. I don't have very much white in here in this blanket. I guess I've only read like 2 romances this year. And there is some like miscommunication, but I don't really mind it because it stems from like a neurotypical person trying to understand like a neurodivergent character and what their actions mean without even knowing that they're neurodivergent. So like having somebody come to understand that love can be shown in different ways for different people, I think is really nice. And misunderstanding them at first is something that actually, you know, happens a lot. I feel like both of the characters really grew throughout the story, and it was just a fun, good, fast read. I really liked it, and I'm excited to pick up The Heart Principle, which I think is the last one in this companion series. If you have recommendations for romances with either autistic representation or other neurodivergency, let me know, because I want to read more. I'm not autistic, so like I can't speak on how the representation is here. So if you have recommendations or you have critiques, please tell me. I'm gonna add on these 2, and then we're gonna get into more books. The next 2 books, we're gonna go downhill for a little bit. Listen, we are finished with this romance stripe. And I'm going to add another romance stripe, okay? And I don't want you to get mad, but I read Twisted Love by Anna Huang, and I hated it. This is a 1 star. I don't think it's really fair for me to be too harsh on this because I didn't really know what I was getting into. I thought this was just going to be just a normal college romance, but it's not. It's kind of like, it's got like mob boss elements, I guess you could say, which is not for me. I have trouble caring about characters when I have to suspend my disbelief that far. This man is so gross. He's so cringy. I hate him. I hate his attitude. I hate everything about him. And I will not be picking up any more of these books. It's not for me. I wish it was, because I love these. I like these covers a lot. I like these bindings. They're nice and heavy. Although this one, I have this one and I have Twisted Games, I think. And this one is just the teeniest bit taller. The main woman character felt like stock. Like she was made of cardboard. She had no personality other than being like a people pleaser, and I don't see how the main man character would even like that, and I don't know how he likes her. I don't get the connection at all. She's like constantly talking about how she never sees him smile, and I'm like, if I was near a man who never smiled at me, I wouldn't be near that man anymore. I'd be done. I'd be out of there. So yes, unfortunately this is a 1 star. My first 1 star in a really long time, and I hated every second of it, especially the ending. But if you did like it, tell me why you liked it, because I'm curious how anyone could like this man. I'm going to go and finish this stripe. I'm so glad that we're adding white to this. It makes the blanket look so much better, in my opinion. Okay, that is Twisted Love stripe. The next book that I read I don't own physically. I did read it physically. I borrowed a copy from the library, and thank goodness for that, because I did not like it. I read the sequel to Fourth Wing, Iron Flame. I am upset at how much I didn't like this. And I feel like this series has a lot of potential. But I gave this 2 stars. I did make a vlog dedicated to Iron Flame. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out on my channel. Unfortunately, it just was not what I wanted it to be. And I don't think it's good. Do I think Fourth Wing is good? Not really. I think it's fun, and I think there's a place for that, and I had a lot of fun reading it, and I was really excited to dive into Iron Flame, to be in that world again, to be with Violet again. But then, as the book went on, it just became really clear that this book wasn't edited very well. It feels rushed, like they were just trying to capitalize on the hype. And it's very frustrating for that to happen to a book and to a series in general, because it could be so much better. If they just spent a little more time on it, I feel like it would be a lot better. But it is what it is. I mean, I was really disappointed about it, but also, like, I knew people weren't liking it, and I read it anyway. So there's that. It just sucks that the series is turning out the way it is, because I feel like it could have, taken Fourth Wing, and like, it wasn't the best written book, but it was pretty well structured and fun. And I feel like, writing can always get better. Authors can always become better writers. So that's what I was hoping would happen, and that's not what happened at all. So I probably won't be picking up the 3rd book unless there's some big, exciting changes, like people love it or something. Overwhelmingly love it. I don't really care about the cliffhanger that happened. I feel like the book was predictable and unsatisfying. So as of right now, my plan is to not pick it up. Okay, I think most of the negative feelings are, reviews are done for this wrap up, so that's good. But I'll be back when I'm finished with this stripe. I am doing the pink for fantasy. Okay. Here we are. I finished these 2 rows for Iron Flame. We're still reading fantasy. I read The Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the first in a trilogy, and it takes place in a fantasy version of Italy, which is really neat. There are witches and demon princes and a bunch of fun elements. I feel fine about this. I gave this 3 stars. I really liked the vibes of it and kind of creepiness that it had. And I listened to the audiobook, which if you're going to read it, I highly recommend. There's some sound effects and stuff that's really cool, and I liked it. That's all I got. I liked it. It was fine. The plot is a teensy bit confusing just because the reason people are doing things is a little off to me. I don't really get why there are so many secrets happening and so many lies. Also, it's extremely fast-paced. Things were happening every second of this book and not really necessarily in a good way. I also feel like after reading Twisted Love, I just wasn't buying the whole bad boy, I'm a king, demon prince or whatever. It just wasn't working for me. I wasn't really into it after Twisted Love. I genuinely think it's all Twisted Love's fault. In fantasy, those are fine. I like those kinds of characters and I like the tension that happens there, but I just was not super into it, and I'm hoping it gets better in the second one. Solid 3 stars. I feel like we have 4 more books, 4 more stripes to add on after this one, so I'm gonna go do that and stop talking so much. Okay, bye. We're back. We're so back. Let's see what we're doing now. We're actually attaching my favorite yarn in this blanket, this beautiful heather brown. This is for litfic / historical fiction, which is our next pick, The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. This was a good story. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked following this main character throughout his life and the different relationships that he has, and he has complicated feelings with his father, with his friends, with his mentors, and I really liked exploring those relationships, as well as like his feelings towards his home country, Afghanistan. He like left Afghanistan during Russian occupation and fled to the United States eventually. But like in his adulthood, we see him revisiting his home country and just having some weird feelings about it. I think it's important for authors and the characters that they write to explore like these complicated feelings and maybe cultural differences that they have with their family and friends. I did look into like the Goodreads reviews, and I saw some who said like elements of the plot are really convenient just so he can have these interactions, which I think is fair, completely fair, and if that like takes you out of the story, then that's really annoying. I also saw people say that the story is too westernized, which doesn't really compute to me because the author, I believe, is American and the character lived in America for most of his adult life, so it makes sense that he would approach the situation from a Western point of view. To me, it makes sense. Give me recommendations for like less westernized POVs that I can read from, and whether it's fiction or nonfiction, I want to learn more about it. I saw that and I wanted to mention it because I'm westernized in my views, so I don't really know how valid that criticism is, but I did want to bring it up. I gave this 4 stars and I really liked it, and I'm going to go do this stripe. I like that I'm getting some thicker stripes because like I read mostly just like one genre of a book and then I'd switch genres except for like fantasy right here, so I'm glad it's looking a little bit more multi-thickness stripes, you know what I mean? Here we are again. I kinda wanna be morally brave. My next book is a really short one. I read it in about 3 hours, and that is Kim Ji-young, born 1982, by Cho Nam-ju, and this is translated by Jamie Chang. This is only like 160 pages. It's so short. It was really good. It has a lot to say and it says it really well, I think. I'm also putting this into Litfic, so we're gonna stick with this. Heather Brown follows Kim Ji-young throughout her life from childhood to like her married life, when she starts to like act kind of weird and take on the personality of other women in her life. Her husband is like, that's strange, she just turned into this other girl. But it's kind of saying like how universal the experience of being a woman is and how women go through a lot of the same things. It seems on the surface like there's been a lot of progress in terms of feminism, but also there are a lot of problems that are still here, and maybe they just kind of hide under a veneer of progressivism. Is that a word? So this is about the state of feminism in Korea, the state of womanhood in Korea, and where we're at there. Very impactful, very somber at parts, but also kind of like funny at parts, and it also has studies and like stats throughout the novel. Like one time she talks about the price of getting a house, and then there's a stat backing that up, and there's a footnote where the source is coming from, which is really interesting to do in a fiction novel. Like it makes it very obvious like the point that we're trying to get across. We're still giving that point in a narrative that encourages empathy and encourages like an understanding of another person's situation. It's very interesting, and I don't know that I've ever read anything like it. I really enjoyed the main character and how she kind of pushed back sometimes, even if it was only in her own head, because I feel like so often we either see characters who are like going with the flow and aren't fighting back at all, or characters who are like all guns ablaze. I feel like it's really beneficial to have somebody who's having complicated feelings about something, but is also, you still have to live in the society that you're in, and you want to maintain these relationships, and sometimes that requires fitting the role that society has made for you. I really liked it, and I would highly recommend. I'm giving it 4 stars if I didn't say. Good stuff. I'm gonna work on these stripes and I'll be back. Now I am attaching white for romance. The next book that I read in May is Heartstopper Volume 1. This was a reread for me. I read it maybe 2 years ago or so. I wanted to revisit it because I haven't read it in that long, and I haven't read the other volumes either. I just read this and then stopped the series for a really long time for no good reason. I have this habit of like putting off graphic novels even though I know I'm going to enjoy them. I put them off for no real reason other than like they feel like a reward, they feel like a break. So then I'm like, I don't need to read them now, I want to save them for something like a readathon or something. But that's just silly. I should just pick them up when I want to read them. So I'll probably pick up volume 2 pretty soon because I want to see their story continue. I love Nick and Charlie. I love Nick. Oh my gosh, he's such a cutie pie. It was just such a warm, cozy reread and exactly what I needed. It really captures the feeling of having a crush in a way like no other book really has for me. The excitement of it. I've been with my partner for like 5 years now, so sometimes it still feels like a crush, but a lot of the initial like nervousness is obviously gone. It's nice to relive it and just have it in such a wholesome package. I gave this 5 stars and I can't wait to keep reading. So I'm going to add this white stripe and then I will be back to talk about the final book, which was also a banger. Here we are. Last book, baby. I read this next one on my Kindle. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I also read it audibly. It was like $3 or something on Audible, which was nice. I read Powerless by Elsie Silver. I'm giving this 4 stars. It was so good. This is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Spring series, and she just keeps delivering. I'm not gonna lie, Flawless was my high so far. Still, I know a lot of people love Heartless. Heartless was great, but Flawless, Rhett and Summer are just something else. That being said, I was super looking forward to Jasper's story. That's who Powerless revolves around. He's a hockey player and his love interest is a ballerina. It was so sweet and good and awesome. They go on a little road trip together, which means like it's not really focused on their sports at all, which is fine. I would have liked more ballerina stuff, but that's okay. It was so cute and so fun. They're made for each other. Just like all the Chestnut Spring series couples, like they're all just made for each other. And it's just so delightful. And I love being in that world. And I'm so excited to read the next one. I don't even know what it is. What is it? What comes after Powerless? I'm gonna go look. I think is it Restless? Honestly, I can't keep the names of these straight. Flawless, Heartless, Powerless, Reckless. And then whatever the last one is. I don't remember. I guess that was printed before it came out. I will do these stripes, do these 2 rows. BRB. Okay. That is it. That is the 10th book. Powerless was the 10th book that I read in May, and now I can be done with crocheting for the night. Here's what the blanket looks like. We've added a lot of white, a lot of romance that I guess I didn't expect. Definitely wasn't planning on reading that much romance this month. I just randomly decided to pick up Heartstopper again. I randomly decided to finally pick up Powerless. I'm so glad that I did because they made me feel nice and warm and cozy, but we can wrap this up, put it away until next month, and I'll be back with more books. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me. If you liked this video, stick around, subscribe, and if you're interested, my Instagram, Goodreads, and Etsy shop are all linked in the description below. Feel free to check those out or friend me. I'll see you soon.